The Bloodline has been a storyline that has been running within the WWE for the last 4 years. With so many twists and turns and plenty of character development for all involved, it has also proven to be one of the best storylines in modern wrestling. But now that Roman Reigns has finally lost the WWE Championship, many ask, where does the Bloodline storyline go from here? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jose Ramos Jr., and if you enjoy talking about wrestling as much as I do, please consider subscribing to the channel for more. Back in the summer of 2020, it was the pandemic era. Wrestling was on a little bit of a lull in comparison to how it is now. Roman Reigns returns at SummerSlam 2020, and I don't know if anybody could have anticipated the ride that we would be on within these last 4 years. The growth that the Bloodline has shown, given the storyline where it started between he being Roman Reigns and Jey Uso, seeing the development that it went through once he went to WrestleMania, fighting the likes of Daniel Bryan and Edge, then a returning John Cena at SummerSlam, the Brock Lesnar saga that would continue, and then ultimately leading up to the Cody Rhodes feud, and finally him dropping it to Cody at this past year's WrestleMania. The Bloodline has really come off as this cinematic feud within the family, the Anoa'i family. Some would argue the greatest wrestling family. Now, although Cody's theme does say there is more than one royal family in wrestling, I don't think there's a bigger argument that could be made that the Anoa'i family really is the greatest wrestling family in terms of accomplishments and size. But if we take a look at each individual player within the Bloodline storyline, let's start with Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns has obviously lost the WWE Championship, so it makes the most sense for him to take time away from the company. I personally don't see him returning until SummerSlam. There have been reports that he's advertised for the SmackDown before SummerSlam. I think that'll be the first time we see him. I don't think we need him. At the moment, he can finally take a well-deserved break after holding that title for nearly 4 years. Now, as for the wise man, Paul Heyman, I personally think he'll still be involved with SmackDown. He'll be along, the likes of a Solo Sikoa, I think. And speaking of Solo Sikoa, they're really teasing him, kind of taking up that mantle of the Tribal Chief. Back in December and early January, Roman Reigns had hinted that he is the heir to the title of the Tribal Chief. And now that Solo Sikoa has had this fascination with consequences after a loss, Solo Sikoa is kind of hinting that he's now taking over. What we saw on Friday Night SmackDown with the altercation and ultimately the removal of Jimmy Uso from the Bloodline, Solo Sikoa brings in Tama Tonga, a new debut, and they both said by orders of the Tribal Chief, which now develops this kind of internal struggle of, was it Roman Reigns' call, Solo Sikoa the one that made the call, or perhaps even The Rock? I think ultimately, with the removal of Jimmy Uso, this now opens the door for a return of the Usos. The brothers obviously fought at WrestleMania, but I could see them within the next year kind of figuring out how can they coexist, how can they come together. Ultimately, I think it'll be a singles feud, Jimmy kind of fighting Solo and Tama Tonga, and then perhaps through the draft, Jay and Jimmy kind of reconcile and they come together as a way to fight a common enemy. The way they've been presenting Jey Uso, I would not be surprised if he gets tired of seeing his older brother getting attacked, getting beat down by a Solo and Tama Tonga. And also you have to keep in mind, Jacob Fatu is just around the corner, who is reportedly signed with the company as well. So it's going to be curious to see how he lines up in the company and in the storyline within the Bloodline. Another character we have to keep an eye on is The Rock. I think this is ultimately building to a Bloodline versus Bloodline storyline, not unlike what we saw with Bloodline Civil War with the Usos, Roman Reigns, and Solo Sikoa, but it'll be more of the lines of the Usos and Roman Reigns as the babyface team versus The Rock, Solo Sikoa, and Tama Tonga. Again, it just decides where Jacob Fatu falls into all of this. The Bloodline storyline has proven to be the biggest, the most consequential long-term storyline that the WWE has been running in a very long time. I personally think that they know what they're doing, although there might have been some little bit of lulls in between. Ultimately, they've been treating this like the cinematic masterpiece that they've intended. I don't know what the end game is. I think obviously The Rock versus Roman Reigns is definitely a storyline and definitely a match that they are looking to build. And with reports saying it'll be WrestleMania 42, one has to ask, what are we going to do for WrestleMania 41? The Usos, I think, are going to come back together. They are considered to be one of the greatest tag teams of all time, so I would not be surprised if they bring them back. I think Solo is going to be due for a huge Solo run, no pun intended. And then, of course, Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga has yet to be seen. But given the reaction that his debut had on Friday, I know the WWE is very pleased with that reaction and that they're heading in the right direction. So I'm curious to see what they do with Jimmy. Will he be written off of TV for a little bit? Will it be an immediate return and him feuding with them? How will the Wise Man figure into all of this? Will he stay with Solo Sikoa just purely out of intimidation and fear? Or will he realign himself with a babyface Roman Reigns and the Usos in order to kind of promote this as the original Bloodline versus the new Bloodline, a la NWO Black and White versus NWO Hollywood? And above all else, I feel like a lot of people fear that the storyline might have gone on too long, that they might have finally jumped the shark. I don't think that's the case. This is a new wrinkle in the storyline that we have not been presented with. Obviously, we've seen dissension within the Bloodline, but not on this level. You have The Rock, you have Roman Reigns, and then below that, Jimmy and Jay coming back together, Solo going on his own and having the Wise Man with him. Obviously, like I said, the debut of Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga. So many different layers. And on top of that, I personally would be really interested in seeing incorporating Naomi into this. Because Naomi being the wife, real life wife, of a Jimmy Uso. And they kind of hinted at that on SmackDown when she had her little altercation and eventual match with Tiffany Stratton. She made a comment along the lines of all nights, not tonight. Which I would think was kind of in reference to the beatdown that her husband sustained by his brothers in the Bloodline. I like seeing a lot of real life coming into storylines and blurring the lines of what is shoot and what is a work. I don't know what they have in store. I'm personally looking forward to it. We're going to go ahead and break down each event that happens within the Bloodline to see how does it eventually conclude? How does it end? Because many people thought, obviously, the end of the Bloodline would be at WrestleMania 40 when Cody Rhodes wins the WWE Championship. But this is only the beginning of the post-title era for the Bloodline. And like I said, if you guys like this video, please give it a like, share it, subscribe to the channel for more wrestling content. Be sure to check out the J Area podcast on every Wednesday. And on Fridays, I will be uploading more videos as well, with shorts coming daily. And with all that being said, of course, my name is Jose Ramos Jr. Please continue to subscribe to the channel as we reach our goal for 1,000 by the end of the year. And I'll see you guys in the next video.